Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with interesting and inspiring people like our new friend Chris to help you find the resources, tools, and support you need to be your best inspired selves. So, how are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing amazing, just wonderful. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm glad I know I had to cancel on you last time. I don't remember why, but I distinctly remember that I did. So, I'm so pleased that you took another chance on us.
That's okay. That's all right. Life happens.
It does. So, Chris, it's so nice to see you. You say you're just getting back from LA. You have a lot going on, busy clients, all that stuff happening. Why don't you just tell the audience just a little bit about who you are and what you do and what all that means?
Okay, so my name is Chris Shelton, and I own and operate with my wife, Parisa Shelton, the Morning Korean Healing Arts Center in San Jose, California, as well as in Los Angeles, actually to be technical, in Burbank. And so we do a combination of things. So I have over 30 years of clinical experience with traditional Chinese medicine, in particular a practice called Qigong. And so what we do is that we see patients or clients in clinic for diseases and chronic pain, but then also too, we teach a number of different classes for health maintenance, because in Chinese medicine, the leading cause of death and disease is negative emotions and stress. And it's not that these emotions are bad, it's when they show up or they show up and you suppress them or don't express them appropriately, that they actually affect and attack different organs of the body. And this is what shows up as inflammation, and this is what shows up as disease. So our big thing is to empower people to be the best person that they could possibly be by doing these practices. So it's not about the teacher being above the student. No, the whole idea here is that we want the student to surpass the teacher. So our big thing is about empowerment. We're also clinical directors for the Special Olympics for all of California. So we teach these Qigong practices for a program called Healthy Athletes, Strong Minds. And we give these Qigong practices to the athletes, coaches, and their families, not only to deal with the stress of competition, but more importantly, what do you do if you get bullied by somebody? Or if you get into an argument? People with intellectual disabilities are no different than us as far as, how these emotions and stimuli affect us. And so really it's to be able to empower yourself, to be able to not only to deal with the day-to-day stress, but more importantly, the old stuff. And, if you read the bio in my book, my first book, Qigong for Self-Refinement, I had a rough childhood growing up. So I know from firsthand experience how this trauma could actually show up as physical disease inside the body. So we give health talks on disease prevention, Chinese face reading. We have a Qigong teacher training program that's online and interactive. And we just started, through this pandemic here, we just started a Qi Club where we have people from all around the world that join us for a half-hour class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Pacific Standard Time from 8 to 8:30, where we do Qigong. And when Priest is teaching on Mondays and Wednesdays, it's like a combination of Qigong and Pilates, and myself, it's more about Qigong and Tai Chi.
Oh, that's amazing. I love the tie into the Special Olympics because as my audience, if they don't know now, they're bound to know soon. But I have four children, and one of them is on the autism spectrum.
Oh,
And I know a lot of times people discount the neurologically divergent or people with different abilities, thinking that certain things don't affect them, but they just don't necessarily exhibit them as we might. But it doesn't mean they're not there, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got, thanks to Maria Shriver, the First Lady, in 2015, I actually presented Qigong at the World Games for the first time ever. And then it was about a year after that that the Strong Minds program started. So, it's been a fun journey. And the results from these simple practices that anybody could do is quite amazing. And what I love about Qigong is that it does not discriminate against age, gender. You could be in a wheelchair and still practice Qigong. It doesn't matter what your religious or spiritual belief structure is. It really is something so simplistic to do, but yet its practice is meant to harness and to focus on the internal self.
Wonderful. So I'm really curious because I didn't read the book. I'm sorry. I should get my butt in gear. Um, and a lot of us grow up with different things coming up, but I- you said it's a traditional Chinese practice, right? Is that what you said? So
Correct.
how did you come across this type of solution? kind of coming from a rough childhood to where you are now, right? That's a long ways, but what brought you to this paradigm
State.
of healing? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my old story, not the story that I identify with, but my old story is that I had my first heart attack at age 17 from a meth overdose. I started doing drugs about 11 and a half or 12, started off with speedballs, which is heroin and coke. But I was always highly motivated and driven, so at the same time during high school, I was still doing my EP studies in art. I was going to school part-time, then to an adult educational school to get my mechanics license. And also when I was 15, I started becoming an apprentice butcher where, I was a butcher for 21 years. But, after the second heart attack, I realized that I was going to end up dead or in prison or both. And so what I did was I put myself into Taekwondo in order to change my path. And one night before a match, I started competing right away. One night before a match, I was accidentally kicked in the back, which almost left me paralyzed, they said, from the waist down. Meaning that the doctor told me, Chris, if you move the wrong way, we could sever that nerve. And then as a result, things you take for granted, like walking, having sex, those kinds of things may be gone, right? So anyways, led me to this doctor who had a therapist working for her at the time. He was a martial artist, and he started to talking to me about chi. So I'm about 18 or 19 years old now, and I'm like, yeah, right. The closest thing to chi that I'm going to get is like Cheez-Its and Cheez Whiz, because like, what's this chi stuff, right? So I had serious health problems. I had digestive issues. I lived on Tums, kaopectate, antibiotics, and severe sinusitis. And I went through all kinds of medical procedures to figure out the digestive issue. If I ate any salad, avocados, anything with fat in it, I was either vomiting or in a fetal position an hour or two later. And, I had nothing to lose. My back was healing. And I kid you not, I started doing these Qigong practices. And back then, this was over 20 years ago, or 30, about 30 years ago, nobody was talking about Qigong back then. So anyways, fast forward, after about 6 months of doing these practices daily, you don't know when it changes. You just wake up one day and you're like, wow, when did that change? And I thought, wow, if a simple movement and meditation could do this to me, there must be something to Chinese medicine. So that's when I started to study traditional Chinese medicine. And here I am today. Here we go, 30 years later.
Yeah, sometimes our mess has to happen so we have a message to share with others, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. And, I think it's a testament too that, if I could change, you could change too. And since then, I'll be very transparent. My nature is quite extreme. And, before I started my clinical practice, the Qigong, everything with my life would be going good, because as you increase your vibration, then what happens is you draw in that same kind of vibration, right? If your vibration is kind of off, then things in your outside environment show up as kind of off, right? And so things would be going good, and then my extreme nature would veer me off. I joke around that Johnny Cash song, Walk the Line, was definitely me, but yeah, but I could definitely say that it's something that is so empowering to do, and that I still have to do on a day-to-day basis, because I'm no different than you. I still have the same stresses that everybody else has. Like, God hasn't given me the golden ticket. Said, you know what, Chris, you've done a lot of work on yourself. The rest of your life is going to be nice and easy. No, I think if anything, a lot of times I get more challenges, because it's like, all right, Chris, if you're going to do this stuff, let's see how you process through it, so then that way you can share that message with somebody else.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that a lot with some of the healers, different paradigms have come on our show. Is your life doesn't all of a sudden become like perfect and out lacking of bad things or circumstances. I mean, if nothing else, if you relate to others more because you've had a challenge that you've overcome, and you might just be 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, but that's all you have to be, right? Just enough to grab their hand and lead the way through.
Yeah. In my clinical practice where we see patients one-on-one, I can diagnose or assess by taking the pulse. I can look at the person's tongue, but the favorite diagnostic method that I like using is Chinese face reading, because every feature, every line on your face tells me a story, not only of your personality, but it tells me about past traumas. It also tells me about potential diseases inside the body. And, I'm very open about my life, as you can tell. I'll share I'll share everything. Here, I'll take off all my clothes now. No, just kidding. Don't want to scare anybody with that. You might need Qigong after that.
Yeah, like we have to do some meditation. I got to get that up.
Right. So, but I'm very open with people because at some level, these experiences that I've had, I'm able to connect to. And like I said, you know, things that we take for granted. I'm just going to use frozen shoulder, for example. Frozen shoulder, I'm writing my second book on the spine and all the various problems from the cervical issues to the thoracic spine to the lower lumbar. And cervical, which is neck issues, all the people, everything is the same, meaning that all the issues that we have, like cervical arthritis, cervical stenosis, unless you got into a car accident and immediately from the car accident you came out with a neck injury, not 2 weeks later, because that means that's emotional, or you know you're doing jujitsu, someone popped your shoulder out, that's different. But every single shoulder and neck issue that I see, it has to come back to emotions of the heart. And I'll give you an example. So Mike Kroger did a testimonial for me. He's the guitarist for Nickelback. And he flew out to San Jose. He had cervical issues for 3 years. You can see the cervical arthritis in his neck or in the x-rays. And so when he came in, I said, hey, Mike, I said, you know, what was happening 3 years ago prior to this issue showing up? And he said, just like everybody else would, you know what, Chris, I think the way I hold my guitar on stage, or I think, you know, the way, you know, the stress from being on tour. And then he paused and he thought about it. And he said, you know what, actually, 2 weeks before this showed up, my horse died. So his horse died. He did what all of us do, took care of business, that he went back on tour. And then his body said to him a couple weeks later, knock, 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 you know, you can pretend like that didn't hurt you, but that affects you much more deeply than what you think. And so it starts off as what we call as channel pathology, where the channel gets obstructed due to the emotional component. And then because now there's a blockage, it creates a deficiency of blood and fluids, and then through the, you know, the electrical communication between the brain and the to the lower extremities. And then what happens is eventually, because of that deficiency, it shows up as arthritis. And, you know, he's funny because he said in his interview that I got rid of his arthritis in 30 minutes. And actually what happened was that I got rid of his pain. Then his body kicked in and did what it wanted to do and was supposed to do, which is then heal itself.
That's beautiful. What a wonderful testimonial too, to be able to
Yeah.
have someone whose name is a little more recognized, so people go, oh, well, if someone, you know, famous might have thought to do this, then there's some opportunities there for all of us. I'm really curious, if you don't mind me asking, unfortunately, and I know this will time the interview, but with COVID and with a lot of people being in quarantine, are you still finding yourself able to support your patients and your practitioners with this paradigm, even though a lot of people are remote? Are you pretty much just saying, I'm going to go to where I need to go? How are you handling it?
So that's a really good question. So we also have a big contract with Santa Clara County. So we were in charge of the 23,000 employees for employee wellness. So we go into the mayor's office to trauma nurses and doctors, give talks on disease prevention. And anyways, during this whole thing, because we got the clearance as a necessity, because we practice acupuncture and those types of things. And so obviously all of our patients know what the protocols are, and the protocols that we follow according to the county of Santa Clara. We're in Los Angeles County. We follow those protocols. But quite honestly, our practice didn't slow down at all. And what's really disturbing for me watching all this stuff go on is, you know, they call it a pandemic, but I'm calling it a fear-demic, because there's so much fear surrounding, because unfortunately, as a community, we're not getting the right information, and we're not getting concrete information. And one of the things I like to share with your viewers is that, and nobody's talking about this, is that actually with Chinese herbology, not only are we able to prevent the infection from coming in, but we're also seeing patients that do have the certain traditional herbal formulas. So that's something you go online and order or get from Whole Foods. You know, you have to see a licensed acupuncturist. But anyways, there's herbal formulas that are actually curing this. And we're even seeing people that that are elderly, that had weakened immune systems before, that is pushing this disease out. And it's troubling to me that nobody's talking about this, because it's not about the fear. It's about educating people and allowing for people to understand that, you know what, Chinese medicine was based upon viruses and bacteria. I mean, think about it. There was, over the last hundreds or thousands of years, they had to deal with major plagues. And one of the things that we take for granted that nobody talks about is our environment. And when our environment is out of season, the diseases that it creates months later as a result of that. And so in Chinese medicine, we look at the whole organism in connection with nature. So when we look at viruses like this, I've heard all the conspiracy things, but when we look at viruses like this, you know, a virus like this easily can be brought about from something that we take for granted, like clear cutting the rainforest in Indonesia. Like, there's still bacterias and molds and plant life and animal life that scientists still have not discovered on the floor of those rainforests. And then we clear cut this all goes up into the atmosphere, and it creates the potential for something like this to come up. I'm not saying for sure that this is how this one started, but if you look at what we're doing to the planet, we're not separate from what's going on in our outside environment. And so really taking a look at that. And, you know, there's some simple things that people could do that we recommend. As long as it's not contraindicated with any other medication, so check with your physician first, but high doses of ascorbic acid, I know that, which is vitamin C, we put that in our water, we drink that along with chlorophyll, liquid chlorophyll, which is really good as a gentle liver detoxifier, also helps to build the blood. So those gentle things that you could do. Making sure you get enough sleep also is preventative. Room temperature water, not cold water, because cold water creates disease in the body, but room temperature water, and really finding a practice like Qigong. You know, this is my book, Qigong for Self-Refinement, and looking at a practice like Qigong in order to help to deal with the stress and the fear of the unknown and the fears of the what ifs. And so that way it decreases the inflammation in the body. We just decrease the inflammation in the body, the sympathetic nervous system calms down, and our immune system is stronger. We create more fear because we're watching too much news, we're on Facebook too much, and guess what? Creates the inflammation, sympathetic nervous system is heightened, and guess what? Our immunity actually goes down. So very simple things that we could do, but I want your viewers, and I really want to spread this to the world, is that there are things that are being done. You know, where this outbreak supposedly first started in China, they finally sent 200 acupuncturists in. And why do you think that they opened up so quickly? And why do you think that their economy bounced back so quickly?
I definitely don't know the answer to that, and I think you have an hypothesis. I am curious, though, why do you think, if at all you have a theory, why do you think we don't talk about the natural opportunities for health? I mean, if I remember, and you look like, well, actually you look very young, but you may be around my age, but you know, we went through the HIV, all of the rumors with HIV, and there was said to be, we think we found a rainforest cure. We think we found a way to help this. We think we found a way to remove this from the body. And now there's lots of different cocktails and such things out there, and we don't even really talk about it nearly as much, and everyone was almost as fearful. That I remember it was so, everyone was scared to death, and now we've done that again, right? We have everyone just scared because of everything being uncertain. And if there's this opportunity to use nature to fight nature back, why don't you think we talk about it with, or share this with others?
Well, unfortunately, I think that we have certain politicians in power that have special interests, and part of those special interests are the pharmaceutical companies. And to be quite honest with you, most of America doesn't want to hear about herbology. What it wants is, it wants the magic pill, or it wants an injection. So these politicians understand what most of the population is looking for. And plus also they have these special interests, because you can't mark up herbology. Like, we don't make that much on herbs when we make an herbal formula for somebody, whereas the pharmaceutical companies do. So unfortunately, I believe it's because of these special interest groups, and it's the mere fact that there's so many people that are looking outside themselves for help, that a magic pill, which is not a magic pill, is going to come with some kind of repercussion, or some kind of vaccine is going to come with some kind of, that's the easier step, as opposed to really taking a step back and say, well, why don't we look at our diet? Why don't we look at our lifestyle habits? Why don't we do things to empower ourselves to become more mindful and centered? And I've heard some arguments from a couple of people that said, well, I heard that there's mercury in those herbs. Well, even if you're growing organic, the plants come from the ground. The parts per million is very, very, very small, to where it's really going to show up. But sure, there are some places in China, for example, where maybe harvesting isn't watched as well, but we really try to make sure that where we get the herbs from, the sources are clean. But no matter if you're eating organic, you're going to get a certain amount of mercury into the plant. I mean, you can't avoid it. But besides that, I then flip the question on to them too and say, well, this disease is deadly, and the suffering that goes on before you pass on, it's not like a quick 1, 2 and that's it. No. And so if I have a choice between not suffering and not having the residue, let's say I do survive, and not having the residue scarring on the heart or on the lungs or whatnot, which is what we're finding, these lesions on the heart muscle and such, then and there's an herbal formula that can fix it, I'm going with that herbal formula.
Yeah, it's like, I find it really interesting, and I actually live in the Midwest, so
Oh.
a lot of the people I interview tend to be from the West Coast, who seem to occasionally have more open-minded to different possibilities, and I just find it very odd, I guess, that people are willing to put in a pill in their body that like will cause anal seepage and eyeball, like your eyes might get infected, and like all these the 15 things they list off at the end of the commercial, and somehow like that's less scary than like, let's see if we mix these 6 brown plants together and see how that goes down. Like,
Right.
okay, so I don't know, I'm thinking again, anal seepage versus
Right. I take the
I
matter.
like it
I
a
take the
little,
matter. Right.
right? It's so
Yeah.
weird, like I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I'm just going to, I don't know if you remember, because actually I'm going to be 50 in about a month here.
Oh, you
And
look way younger than that. So
oh,
congratulations. Well done.
well, thank you. I think it's because of the Qigong, because seriously, trust me, I've abused, like,
Yeah, you had a rough start, or your
yeah.
story
And
was
so
rough.
if these organs are functioning properly, then it shows up on the outside, right? Then it shows up. But I'll give you an example of what the FDA did. So a few years ago, I don't know if you remember Fedra. Fedra is found in a dietary supplement.
Yeah, that was the
Oh,
weight loss thing, wasn't it?
yes, Metabolife. Metabolife used to have a Fedra. And a Fedra is also called Ma Huang in Chinese herbology. And so a number of years ago, the FDA outlawed ephedra because people were dying from, young people were dying or having strokes or aneurysms from
Overindulging.
taking this dietary pill. But did you know that in Chinese herbology, the way that Chinese herbology works is that it's like an army. You have your general herb, then you have assistant herbs. And what those assistant herbs do, for example, like ephedra, what those assistant herbs do is they take away the speedy effect of ephedra, and it leaves the positive effect, which is clearing pneumonia from the body immediately. Within 1 to 2 days, the patient's so much better. And they outlawed that herb, which now there's other herbs that you could utilize. We obviously, there's tons of herbs out there, but here was a simple herbal formula. There's a formula called Peoria formula that had Ma Huang in it. And we had somebody come in with certain types of bronchitis and certain types of pneumonia. Within 2 days, it would be gone. So the FDA outlawed this, not taking into account, yes, it should be monitored and regulated because of dietary companies like Metabolife when they had it in their product. They no longer obviously have it in their product. Yes, it should be regulated. Herbs should be regulated, but don't take a precious herb that when somebody misuses it, then limits us from being able to heal and cure disease. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's very weird, right? Like there's like this huge backlash against like the whole thing. I think we're seeing a lot of that now with and I don't have an opinion either way, because I try to stay out of that, but like CBD oil, and there's like there's a lot more herbologists and alchemists and people who are just making efforts to find other ways to heal that don't involve, pharmaceuticals or complementing Western medicine. It's not it doesn't always have to be an all or nothing either. I
Right.
mean, there's opportunity
Right.
for lifestyle change and right whatever else might be supporting. So
Right.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think, and I totally agree with you. Just because we practice Chinese medicine, I believe in integrated medicine. If you have certain types of cancer, and a client comes in, you have to check in with yourself, obviously, what feels the best. But if you're going through chemo and radiation, then I'm going to say, okay, well, number one, I'm going to give you a Qigong practice that I want you to do that's historically known to help with cancer. Number two, we're going to do certain herbs or certain Chinese medicine techniques to help keep your blood strong, because when you're going through chemo, one of the side effects is an anemia, so the person has to have blood transfusions. So let me work together with your physician, your oncologist, to be able to help your body sustain, because essentially you're sticking poison into your body, help your body sustain while you go through this. If you're having there's some things that science is doing that is so remarkable. Like you have a limb amputated, and now, with technology, you could have a new hand, new arm, basically, that can function
From
with
like
your body. That kind of stuff is just amazing. And a heart lung transplant and keeping the patient alive, I mean, those kinds of things, or any kind of trauma, acute trauma. I have so much respect for those trauma nurses and doctors. Like, the trauma that they're seeing. I mean, obviously, if I get into a motorcycle accident, I'm not going to see somebody like me to help me put myself back together, right? I'm going to appreciate the fact that scientifically I have doctors and nurses that can help put me back together. But psychologically, after that trauma is over, then coming to see someone like me to help keep it from sinking into the tissues and turning into other diseases.
Yeah, and thank you. I really appreciate that. I think that there's an opportunity for much more collaboration in healthcare and many parts of our economy and our government, and you can get more done with more people, right? Like many hands make light work, I believe is what I've always heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We have a saying, that just like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Sometimes it takes a village to heal a person. And so, like when a patient comes in, they say, "Oh, well, I'm seeing a chiropractor, I'm doing PT, I'm doing Ayurveda. Should I stop all of those?" I say, "No. Why stop it? Like at the end of the day, if you get better or you understand the disease process and how to reverse it, who cares
How you
who have the magic potion? The main thing is that you're better. That's it. And if you come across a practitioner that says he or she contraindicates what I do, then I leave that person, go find somebody else, because that means that their ego is showing up more so than wanting to help you."
Yeah, I appreciate that so much because my child being on the autism spectrum, we had PT, we had OT, we had speech, we had ABA, and I now have a prior nonverbal child who was not potty trained, not able to communicate. And she's the coolest, most interesting, amazing kid. And she didn't get that way from one therapist. It was an army of people. We even wear T-shirts that say "It takes a village to raise a villager," because
Ah,
without
yeah.
them, my daughter would have had a different experience with all of us. So I took up all your time. I wish I could just not ever stop talking to you. I love what you're sharing with everyone, but I want to make sure that if there are others out there interested in, integrated medicine, finding different ways to heal, could you please just let us know, one place that we can, or all the places you want to share where
Okay.
people can find you. And in the show notes, we'll make sure we also provide all your socials, your website, etc. as well.
Okay, so first of all, Qigong is spelled Qygung. A lot of times people want to spell it CHI, which is the logical way of spelling it, don't you know? But anyways, we have a YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel, we have the 30 days of Qigong on there for free. And it's like you're taking 30 weeks with me at my studio in San Jose. So each day I talk about the practice, why you're doing it according to Chinese medicine, how to do the practice, and each day builds on top of the next, and also corresponds with my book. The other thing about subscribing to our YouTube channel is that every Friday we release a video on some health related topic. So we record, like today I recorded Friday's video. Friday's video is going to be on cancer. What causes it? Fibroids, tumors, and cysts. What causes it? What can we do as preventative? And if you do have cancer, what are the things that we can do to help to reverse the disease? So we give these free videos out with a small blurb or a newsletter with it. So go to Chris Shelton Qigong. And what's funny about the YouTube page is that you can't just type in Chris Shelton, that's S-H-E-L-T-O-N, because if you type in Chris Shelton, the guy that comes up before me is this guy that has all these anti-Scientology videos. So you have to spell, so you have to put in Chris Shelton Qigong, okay? But that's the same handle also for my Instagram page, the Facebook page, Chris Shelton Qigong. Also, if you want to partake in this community of conscious leaders or people increasing their consciousness, join the Qi Club. It's theqiclub.com. And like I said, it's a subscription. It's either $29 a month or you pay, it's $2.99 for the whole year. But if you break down the cost of each of the classes, it breaks down to like $2 a class. Where when I teach in public, the class for 6 classes is $165. So it's a big difference. And what's cool is because it's live on Zoom, you see other people from around the world that have their cameras on that are participating. So we have that, the qigongclub.com, and we really did it through this pandemic, really to empower people through the fear and the uncertainty. At first it was free for the first 2 months, and then we turned it into this into the Qi Club itself. Also, we have, for those of you that are practitioners or anybody who's seeking to dive deeper into themselves, then we do have an online 13-week level 1 Qigong teacher training program. It's interactive, it's online, and go to qigongteachertraining.com for that. And last but not least, the website is sheltonqigong.com. So we have a lot of things.
Yeah, amazing. And not last or least, it sounds like you and your wife have done a lot for the community, and you're really trying to teach others and empower others to help heal themselves. So I really thank you so very much, Chris, for taking the time to be with us today. And tell us when the next book comes out, and we'll make sure we share that with the audience as well.
Okay, yeah, this next book, we're hoping to at least have it by the end of September in the printer's hand. And this one's going to be amazing because of all the diseases that I see, back issues are probably number one. I'm talking lumbar stenosis.
I love that you had mentioned it, honestly, because I went to a chiropractor first time I'd ever done anything like that. And they're like, you have a lot of tension in your neck. How are you not in a lot more pain? And I was like, and then after you shared your story, I was like, yeah, maybe there was some stuff.
Well, that's the cool thing about pain, right? Is that it wakes us up. That's a whole idea around pain, right? Is to hopefully wake you up.
Bad, right? It's just your body's way of communicating with you until you start listening.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Chris. I hope we get to talk to you again, and good luck with the rest of the clients that you have today.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure meeting you and being on your show. Thank you again. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.